Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. I've got an awesome musician, artist, guitarist, songwriter, singer with Imaad Wasif. Where are you out of LA?
Live in LA,
He's out of LA. Let's get into it. He's beautiful music this guy makes, man. Um, Cliff notes on Imaad. He's originally from Vancouver, Canada, now living in LA. He's an extremely talented artist. This isn't his bio. This is what I wrote. A guitarist, songwriter. He's released 6 solo albums to date, including his most recent one, which is called So Long, Mr. Fear, which is a pretty heavy concept. He does a tremendous job writing and arranging songs in the psychedelic, electric, acoustic rock, and folk genre. And he's super talented. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He plays guitar, bass, keyboard, and synths. And he's been involved with other projects as well. You should check some of these out. One of them's called Acid, Grim Tower, the Electric Flower Group, Alaska, which is really cool. New Folk Implosion, and another one that was cool called Lowercase. Also, he's been touring with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs for a long time, as well as playing on Karen O's solo album, Crush Songs. Imaad, thank you so much, and I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks for your time, man. Glad to connect with you.
Thank you, Craig.
You're welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise. All right, so you grew up in Western Canada, but your family moved when you were very young to the Palm Desert. Was that what prompted that move? Was it just time to leave Canada, or?
My parents my father has a weird kind of story. Like my mother and father both were essentially like run out of India under death threats.
Like religious persecution?
Well, he was Muslim and she was Hindu. And so when they were together, that was viewed as
that was a no-no.
that was the worst thing you could do. So they moved to England and lived there for 17 years, and then moved to Canada, and then from Canada just lived there briefly, which is when I was born, and then moved to the desert, which is like as far away as you can get from civilization. At that time, it was very remote.
Yeah, that's wild. I figured you had some English background, because a couple of times we talked, you said, "Oh, I got to get that sorted out," and like. That's such nobody in America says
weird.
Sorted out. Yeah. It's a very British thing. I know from my wife. Yeah. It's a very British thing. Did your folks get you into music?
Well, it's an interesting thing. My father was a ghazal singer, which is a form of Urdu, romantic. It's a romantic language. Based on a couplet form, and it's a very specific type of singing. He did that, and there was a lot of Indian music around the house all the time. I didn't really discover rock music until much later, but I was a little bit daunted by music initially, I think, because it was such a heavy presence in his life, and I don't think that I necessarily understood what it was that I was supposed to pursue through his language of music. So it really wasn't until I found rock and roll that I connected with it and decided that I was going to actually become a musician.
What was the first thing that sort of engaged you, that you remember, that oh man, I need to check this out? Do you remember what that was?
Well, it's interesting. I had a really weird upbringing in the desert. Not only was it extremely sort of isolating, and I'd have to say at that time, the amount of sort of discrimination that I experienced was pretty intense on a daily basis. Just being South Indian, East Indian in the desert at the time. But
there was just not a lot of other. You were a very small minority being out there.
Yeah, and there was nonstop sort of racial, racial slings, and I sort of learned to become numb to it, which is very strange for me to like think about now. But it became like sort of part of my persona, I think. And I also started high school like very early, at 11, and like the first.
Wait
the
a minute.
first,
How the hell did you're like super advanced?
I skipped a few grades, and
Holy shit. That's like almost torture to start high school. I couldn't
it was
imagine an
it was fucking
11-year-old Indian
traumatizing.
boy in the desert starting high school. Oh man, I feel so sad for you right now. Just
It was so traumatizing, man. I mean, like I got fucked with so much, but but in a weird way, like yeah, like it made me try to find something that was mine, that was like a protective shield, and really like
one.
it wasn't until like my junior year that I got kind of taken under the wing of these guys that were like stoners, that because the first 2 years, like I think I remember that like the only people that would really talk to me were like the girls softball team. Like I was like I was taken under their wing or something. They were like protecting me because I was this tiny little.
Because you like they were like maternal
person.
with you, probably an 11-year-old boy. Oh my god!
It was really weird. But then so I got sort of taken under the wing of these stoners that just started giving me like all the records, and like I started listening to records, and I mean that's where my sort of lifelong fascination with sort of altered states came at an early age, and sort of a duality of life, of like the way that I existed and the way, like like it was like very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Like I was like one thing by day, one thing by night. But yeah, I kind of like locked myself in my room like one summer, and just like taught myself how to play guitar. I got obsessed with it, and like I would play along to all the records. I would play along to like all like Pink Floyd records and Zeppelin records. Try to play it along to Hendrix records. And I was listening to a lot of other stuff at the time too. I was getting the early Sub Pop tapes as well, and stuff like Minutemen and The Cure, like things like that as well. But it was mostly like that, like Page was like a huge influence at that time.
Yeah.
For me. So and also Gilmore, and like I would just like listen to those records, play along with them, try to teach myself how to play. And at the end of that first like summer, I was at a party after that, and I realized that like I could actually play. Like there was like a sort of like a jam setup, and I could actually play with these people. And this guy that was like around in the desert, he like came up to me after the party and was like, "All right, man, like you're gonna be in my band." And like so that's when I started kind of playing in bands.
How old were you then?
I think I was just 14 and a half, 15 or something.
And these
like
guys
that,
are probably like 18, 19, 20.
They were older, yeah, for sure. He was
That's
actually
really cool.
I think that dude was like not even in. He wasn't in like high school with us. He had already like left. He was already out of school,
right?
But it was so I got kind of taken into this that generator party thing that happened down in the desert, which spawned like it was like Caius was already kind of happening, but it spawned like Queens of the Stone Age and all that whole scene. But it was weird. It was like a very sort of, for me at the time, it was also like it was a little bit terrifying as well, because like everyone's like losing their minds on like acid, like whatever kind of drugs are around. Right. And I started getting into that stuff at the same time, and but it's like you could just get these, it was like super violent in a weird way too, very, very alpha male.
Yeah.
So, I was constantly under threat of like or under fear of like getting, pummeled or something.
Sure.
But but yeah, in thinking about it, I mean, it was a really interesting scene, but I feel like, um, you know, we, I like formed through that, like I sort of formed like what I really didn't want, in a weird way. Like I didn't know that 100% at the time, but I had started getting like influenced by like a lot of different music past like the sort of classic rock music. I just started coming up to shows in LA, and there's this like seminal club called the Jabberjaw there that so many bands from like Pacific Northwest came down and played. There's like a really famous show like Nirvana played there. Um, and it was this like tiny little coffee shop, but like I became kind of immersed in that scene, and I think a lot of that stuff was a lot of that music then informed like my first kind of forays into like writing music on my own, which was through this band Lowercase that I had when I was from like 18 to I think 23.
So how did that go down with like mom and dad, like seeing you come home, 2 a.m, kind of out of your mind?
Well, that's the thing. It's like
conservative Indian family, like they must have been horrified, freaking out.
I would just completely conceal it. Like it was all
really?
concealed.
Yeah.
It was all concealed. Yeah. Like I had this weird thing where I was like, I was not, I was not fucking up visibly.
Yeah.
I think I was thinking that I was expanding my mind and,
sure.
and my universe. But I was still very much like fixated on this idea that I was going to go to college and I was going to, and, I think the thing that really changed actually now that, that we're talking about it, like I saw Nirvana play just prior to like Nevermind coming out. And I think at the age that I was, it's akin to like, when you listen to or when you hear like, someone like Ozzy talk about like, the Beatles or something. Like
sure.
It was like that for me, like seeing them at that time. I mean, it really was that generation's, like the phenomena was so insane. And I went to the show. I was kicked in the head from somebody jumping off stage. And I remember the interesting thing was like this girl, I kind of like came to, and this girl that like, picked me up was like, "Are you okay?" And it turned out I like looked at her and I recognized her as this like actress that was on this show Beverly Hills 90210 at the time. Yeah. This is like one of my first experiences at like a major show in LA, and I was there, and like she I was just like,
that's intimidating for a young boy too, man. I would imagine.
It was just it was weird, but seeing Kurt Cobain play, and then like I think getting like sucked into the whole deification of him at the time. I mean, I sort of resent that at this point in my life a little bit, because it's like really just like he had this whole death trip thing going on, and like I was extremely susceptible to that. Like it just completely, like in a way, like it put this shadow over like what I was interested in it at the time, and thinking that like that was like a way forward, and that it was okay to sort of like, become obsessed with this like sort of death cult idea. So for as much as I love that music, I don't necessarily go back to it, but like, there's a part of me that sort of resents that thing that I experienced through that music too.
Yeah, because of how it impacted you at that particular stage of your life. Yeah, you had a lot of shit going on, dude. That's a lot. Who you said you were playing guitar? Was that like, did your dad have a guitar lying around the house or something? Or
no, there was this really shitty classical guitar that I had initially, and then I got a Tisco guitar at a garage sale, and I got I bought it because it looked cool. I didn't even know what it was, but it was an Electric Mistress, like
Pedal?
flanger
Oh,
pedal,
okay.
like one
Yeah.
of the old ones. Um, and I didn't even know that this could be like that this was an effects pedal or anything. So I had that without an amplifier for a long time, and I was just learning how to play on those guitars. And then when I really got obsessed, then I I ended up getting like another guitar.
Do you still have that
Um,
Tisco?
no, I wish I did.
Yeah, those are really
Yeah,
cool. I see them
yeah,
on Reverb now. They're like beat up to hell, and they're like $800. I'm like, I mean,
I
just,
know,
they're valued.
I know.
Okay, so when did you start playing professionally? How did that come about? And how old were you at that
Um,
time?
well, so we, when I started Lowercase, we drove up to we would drive up to LA and start playing. We would play like a lot of shows. I think I moved to UCLA to go to school,
Hmm.
and at the time that was, I was
You were like what,
kind
15?
no, no. So yeah, the weird thing was is that like so I graduated high school very early, and then um yeah, my parents were like, no, you're like too young and too small like to go. So I ended up staying in the desert for 2 years, and that's when I started Lowercase. I
Okay.
was I was just going to this like community college there.
Hmm.
Um,
Dude,
but
they
yeah,
made a
so
good move there. Like, I couldn't imagine sending a 15-year-old child to college, man.
yeah,
That would be. It's tough enough when you're 18, or I mean, for me, it was to just get used to socializing and the whole thing. But to 15, that's
yeah,
it's
it's
punitive.
terrifying, you know.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so sorry, I kind of lost where we were at. What
No,
we
you
were
tell me.
talking
I
about.
said, when did you first start playing professionally? You said you'd go into
Oh yeah.
LA with Lowercase. Hey guys, this is a new project I'm involved with, so check it out if it sounds interesting to you and let me know what you think. Attention musicians, composers, artists, and songwriters. If you have a burning desire to get involved with the current explosion of opportunities in music licensing and take your income to the next level, then you must listen to this. A new free training video has just been released, which shows you how to make your first placement in music licensing, or if you've already made some placements, but you don't have a specific system to make more placements more consistently, you'll learn how to do this as well. This free video training is called Where the Money's Hiding in the Music Business in 2023, and you can find it online at musicreboot.com. This video shows you how to create the financial stability you've always wanted and how to take advantage of the current explosion of opportunities in music licensing due to streaming and the internet. So check it out online now at musicreboot.com.
I mean, I think the first like professional tour that happened was when I was at UCLA, and Lowercase had started playing, and we got offered this like Sebadoh tour, and so that was like a really big deal. That was a big deal for us because Lou Barlow at the time was like, he was a songwriter that I had like completely connected with, and like the music. So for them to ask us to go out on tour, that was a big deal for us, and they were big
Yeah.
shows for we were playing to like um, I don't know, like 2,000 people a night.
On your
I mean,
first tour.
on the first major tour that I ever
That's
did. Yeah,
awesome.
it was pretty incredible. It was you know I don't know how much like people loved that music because it was a very tortured, like angsty, noisy duo music. Um, but yeah, it was an amazing experience.
That's cool, man. And what was your like? What would you consider? Did you get what was your like your first break?
Um, well, I don't know what does that mean because I sort of view like all
All
these
these
things
things
as
are
breaks.
breaks. Yeah, yeah, I get it. Well, how about this? What prompted you? You've been a. I mean, I know you do some work with the AAS, but by and
Mhm.
large, the bulk of your music is solo.
Yeah,
And so, like, number one, props to you for doing that because that's difficult as hell, especially now as time marches on, unfortunately, more and more. Were you always like, hey, I'm going to have a solo career? Or like, how did that evolve?
um, Well, I think I always I think I was always solo, even in whatever band I was writing in. The songs have always come from the same place. I've realized that recently, that they've always come from this, like there's like a microcosm, like a universe inside me that is striving to expand all the time. Um, and it's about me sort of like letting go of my limitations of the moment. And like getting past like these layers and layers of shells that that I feel like are so densely packed. Um, but yeah, I definitely I've felt like I've always been on this like solo path in my life.
Side note to what you just said, I think all of us, if you have some like conscious awareness anyway, are trying to let go of limitations. What any like specific things that have been helpful for you that like what's worked for you to let go of stuff? Because I know everybody listening has got shit that they're dealing with the same way.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think we touched a little bit about on sort of letting go of trauma, like letting go. This is a life's work, I think.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
and in many ways, like I think that's why I found music. It's like it was not necessarily like an escapism. It was a true means to sort of express not only like what I felt towards this trauma, but like try to get to a point of like transcending it.
Yeah.
Because music is like such a beautiful thing in that it's really, you can't articulate what it is. It's not just like notes and sound. I mean, there's vibrational aspects of it. There's this complete emotional aspect of it that touches you and lifts you. But um, yeah, I don't know that I don't know, certain days I don't know that I feel like I've been able to let go of anything. It all comes back in waves. It's like
Yeah.
we're constantly sort of like we're cresting waves, and then also getting taken under in like the undertow
Yeah.
of a lot of these things. Um, but um, but yeah, I mean, I came to understand that was like the purpose of the music that I wanted to create, in my life.
But I think what you said when I initially asked you that, it's a life, letting go is a lifelong pursuit. And I agree with you there 100%. You have those little demons, they go back in the closet, but they come back
Hmm.
out.
Right.
when
Yeah.
when you're least prepared or least ready for them. So, hopefully you get stronger over time. I know for myself, that's the way it is. I want to talk about some of my favorite songs of yours, and let's start with Razorlike from the album The Voidist. And just to tell people how Imaad came to be on the show. So I don't know, several years ago I downloaded this album that somebody had compiled on the internet. It was like stoner rock stuff. And so I had that song Razorlike and I'd heard it, but I was in the gym training and it came on. And it's, firstly, Imaad's music is very moving. I mean, is extremely melodic and it's very soulful. And I listened to the song. I'm training, and of course, it gets me through whatever I'm doing. Like I'm all like pumped up. But I said, "Holy shit, this is like amazing!" And I was like pissed at myself that I hadn't followed up with, who is this guy? And I got to listen. Does he have more music? Because oftentimes on these compilations, a lot of the people don't. It's like a one-off thing, and you go search for him, and it's like there is nothing else. And I think I just assumed that, and I said, okay, so I sent the song Razorlike home, took a snapshot of it, sent it home to my desktop to check it out. And then I just did a deep dive into his catalog. I'm like, whoa, all this stuff is great. So I want to talk about where it started for me with you is Razorlike. Amazing song. Such a great buildup, so melodic. And I would love to know what the track is about, if you could tell me the backstory of that.
Um, that was a really interesting period of time for me. Like when I was that was a record on a record called The Voidist, and at the time I was reading a lot of. I think, like I remember reading the varieties of religious experience, um, and Jude the Obscure. I was reading these sort of like things that were steeped in mysticism, and like theosophy, um, and I was tapped into something in myself that was like I felt like I would receive like whole songs. Like that song came to me like as like a whole composition,
That's awesome.
which was like I haven't actually experienced that on that level since then with like a song like that, because it's such a long like sort of journey. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it like um, there's a lot of sort of there's a lot of imagery within that about sort of um, there's a lot of apocalyptic like overtones in the song, and about sort of rising beyond that. I mean, weirdly, so many of my songs like go back to this theme. I feel like we're always like headed for end times. We're always
Mm-hmm.
at the verge of end times, and um, I find myself as this like lone figure, on this landscape. Of course, this is like that's the beauty of this sort of like imagining yourself in the world,
Yeah.
creating your reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I found that I think that song, like I feel like there are people who would identify with that character of that's kind of getting these messianic uh, uh, like being pulled. It's like it's sorry, I know I'm just babbling here, but like
No,
um
you're not. It's not an easy question.
no, I mean, okay, there's a disillusionment that we feel, and the idea like of getting beyond that is really sort of, I think, the idea with Razorlike, you know.
I think I think anybody who's had childhood trauma probably has imagery like that or identifies with like the lone character. Because
Yeah,
if you've had childhood trauma, you've been the fucking lone character
yeah.
in many uncomfortable situations, right? So
Like
I think,
you take that, you assume your role, and you take that role, and then that becomes like, I mean, it does become a shield. It does become a
right.
protective mechanism.
Yeah, until you do the work to like unwind it. And it's not like do the work like, read a book and it's done. Unfortunately, it's a lifetime pursuit, as you said a few minutes
Yeah.
ago. Did you play most of the instruments on that track?
I did not. I did all the guitar. So yeah, like as I said, like I received that song as like in one stream. Like if you were to take away like the the bass and drums on that song, like the whole sort of the whole composition of the song came to me. But I was at the time I was playing with I had a band called Two Part Beast,
Mm-hmm.
and that was comprised of my friend Adam Garcia, and one of my main collaborators in life, Bob Bruno, who he's played on like so many of my records now. Yeah, I brought it into the band, and like it was really like pretty fast the way that song came together. Like the potency of it, like was just intact. And the great thing about um, I think about working with Bob is that we both go for first thought, best thought, and gut instinct,
Yeah.
to not belabor something.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that I feel like was really captured in the recording of that song
Guitar in
too.
there is awesome. I mean, it's awesome. And the arrangement, you have a lot of stuff going on at times in the arrangement there. And you did all that? You put all the arrangement together, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely working with, like working in the studio with the band, but like I don't play drums, I can play other instruments, but yeah. That was just a very magical, like the composition of that
Definitely.
of that song. Like I can't actually claim it because I don't even know like where that came from.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a really like I go back to that song sometimes, and it's one of those things where I don't know how I'd write another song like that.
Yeah, you're like, hey man, send me another one, right?
Yeah.
Off So Long, Mr. Fear, Poet of the Damned. Again, beautiful track. You and Karen O are on there, from Karen from the Yeah Yeah Yes. What does the expression "Poet of the Damned" reference or mean?
Again, my persona, and like I mean that was like an early persona. Like I realized, like, when I would get fucked with all the time, I was like, I would be like, yeah, like I have this whole world inside me that you don't fucking know.
Yeah.
And that's mine, and you're never going to touch it. And I think a few of these songs that I have though are also like sort of trying to dispel my own mythology and like what I believe about in myself. That song, I remember actually I wrote it. It came about during the pandemic, and what I was gonna say is like basically the early title of that song was Ballad of the Omega Man, and it was like based on that Charlton Heston film.
Dude, I just rewatched that like about 6 months ago. That's so funny.
Yeah. And so it's like this sort
very
of
apocalyptic
vision, of the future. But like, like with the veins tapped and the vials drained, it's been a long way down. There's just like, there's a lot there that at the time we were all like completely isolated, and I was just thinking about what is my role in this, like what is my place in society, what can I offer to society, what can I be, how can I be of help, like how can and really ultimately it always comes down to this thing of like, I'm like, my music is the thing that I can give and offer to others, and I mean, to not be so preoccupied with the self, to actually like try to do something outside of yourself, to give outside of yourself.
Yeah, it's a great track, man.
And like, sorry.
No, it's cool. And then from So Long, Mr. Fear, Fader, another beautiful track, and the lyrics. You released that as a separate single too. The cover on that was really cool too. I like the cover design. Yeah, it was nice.
That's Louise Bonet. She's like amazing artist that I know.
It's very cool, really cool. But it's I'm waiting for the beast to transform. So my question is that about your dark side?
Yeah, this is confronting my shadow.
Yeah,
that song, and I think that we all do that. And it's about sort of, like coming again out, like to a place outside of that, like bringing the shadow to the fore so that we can actually illuminate it.
Yeah. And who or what is a fader, as it's related to this song?
Like there's part of that song that's actually, one of my favorite records is Tonight's the Night by Neil Young.
Yeah.
And
wow, I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah, there's a lot on that record. I think in Fader in particular, I can remember being really influenced by like Tonight's the Night on that. But the Fader is the persona of like the one who like is leaving the self behind.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I love that track. And then on After Images, you have, which is like what is that? Like a B-sides or like?
Yeah, that's like a B-side rarities thing, like record that I released I think it was actually just a little after pandemic I released it.
Yeah, there's a great track on there called "The Demon." It's a short and sweet acoustic song. You have like some echo or like ethereal echo or reverb in the background. And I was curious because you don't usually write short songs like that.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's
it's a beautiful song, man. What's the backstory there?
that song was early experimentation with self-recording because I just really kind of started doing that in the last like 10 years. I mean, I've always done demos and stuff, but I've been like trying to experiment more with like making full records. A lot of So Long Mr. Fear was done. I did it like at home, and then I would send my tracks to Bob Bruno, who then would like send me back tracks. So it's like we were working that way.
He does your mixing.
He doesn't do my mixing, but he would do he would add instrumentation.
Okay.
Really beautiful stuff like to that record. I mean, keeping it sparse, but just hitting the right notes all the time. But The Demon, it was actually an early form lyrically. I think there's a song on So Long Mr. Fear called Regeneration that the lyrics for The Demon ended up taking shape into. So those two songs are connected. But that song also, I was, this sort of preoccupation, fascination that I've had with selling my soul to the devil. At the crossroads, that's like an ongoing fascination.
Sure.
We're talking about Page. We're talking about Robert Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
These kind of characters, and like what would that actually mean? Like what would happen?
That's cool. That's really cool, man. Who do you do your own mixing on, or do you have someone? Because all your records are mixed and engineered really well, man. I mean,
no,
there's a lot going on there. Sorry, there's so much going on. I'm like, whoa, it's not easy to, balance all that.
Yeah, no, I don't mix my own records.
Okay.
That's an entire that's like a skill that is not.
It is. It's like roofing. Someone says, "Oh, you're going to fix your roof?" No, I mean, yeah, but you can find it on YouTube. Great. I'm still not fixing my roof. Nothing I want to do. You wrote a song called "Hideaway" with Karen O for the movie Where the Wild Things Are, and I remember as a young child getting that book or reading it in the library.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How did that come about? Your licensing foray. There you go.
Yeah. Karen was asked by Spike to do the soundtrack for that movie, and she assembled a group of musicians. It was like me, Bradford from Deer Hunter. Who else? There was little Jack Lawrence, who had played in the Raconteurs. Like a really cool group of musicians. We all went in and like just worked on the music for this film. It was such an incredible experience. That song in particular, again, was just like complete magic. Like Karen and I
beautiful track. Yeah.
We were in a room and the song literally just like happened. It completely like, we recorded it like almost as it was being written. And the guy who produced that stuff, who engineered that stuff, was named Tom Biller, and he actually had recorded my second record, Strange Hexes. So it was the studio that was down the street from my house at the time, and yeah.
That's cool. Great. So I want to talk to you about something that's kind of heavy if you're comfortable. If you're not, that's totally cool. I read an article where you said, "So Long, Mr. Fear" is as much about love for the child within you to the child in anyone that yearns to be free. I'm just so sick of being crippled by fear in parts of my life, and I really wanted to write a song to shatter it. And I also read something about one of your goals is to help create music that helps overcome childhood trauma, which we've been talking about. me, as someone who spent a lot of time working to overcome childhood trauma, I was very intrigued by this, specifically about talking about the child within stuff. And I was curious if you speak to little Imaad at times, and if so, does that help you? Because I've learned as I get older, if something bums me out, I've learned that oftentimes it's not me, it's like little Craig. So I like, I know this, people listen to this may think I'm totally fucked up, and that's okay, because I'm doing what helps, what works.
Yeah.
So that, but so I've learned that there's like me, and then there's little Craig. And I've learned that a lot of times when I'm upset, it's not really me, it's coming out of me, but it's this guy, little Craig, and I gotta go deal with him and check in with him and let him know everything's cool and not to be so wounded. And that allows me as the adult to not be an asshole or be wounded. So I was just, to whatever extent, if at all you're comfortable, what your experience is with any of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that I could say that that I had achieved that song. It's really just a recognition of the fact that I am making fear-based decisions every single day of my life, and it's paralyzing. And and I tried to go back into the point of like, where is that fear originating? I know where it is. And it is through the lens of, as you said, like, the little Imaad.
Yeah.
And I've avoided confronting that part of my childhood for so long. And I think that's part of like this new idea of somatic therapy. And also even trying to go back to that place so that you could actually see like how you're viewing the world at that moment. What is making you view the world at this time?
Sure.
In the same way, like what is the connecting channel there? But yeah, I mean, every single day of my life, like I have to sort of confront that in so many decisions. And that whole record was really just like about trying to get to that very pure place before all of those sort of negative experiences and like those negative influences happened in my life. And try
Great
to get
title
to like
for
sort
that.
of the beauty in that. Thank you. Yeah.
So Long, Mr. Fear. What an awesome, now that I understand the back, what a great title, man. So very fucking cool.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah,
thank you.
Really cool. When I first started dealing with a lot of this shit and I realized I needed to deal with little Craig, I said, okay, man, what questions do you have? And I was sitting right out back on the patio one night, smoking a cigar with a pad and a paper, and that little kid, like 30 or 40 questions came out. And so then every time I would do some work, I would answer like 2 or 3 of them. And then after like a very short few days, they're all different versions of my answers were all different versions of it wasn't your fault. That was because of these assholes here. But every question that little Craig had, that was the answer to in some way. And that was liberating. It helped me a lot realizing that. And it helped him a lot. I'm talking about us as 2 separate entities because I think for me, in my head, I realized they were.
Yeah.
Because I don't react that way, but yet I am reacting that way. But it wasn't me. It was little Craig. And it was the healthiest thing I ever did. Write out those questions and I wrote all the answers out as well. Every time I come out and do some more work, it was very helpful.
Well, it's interesting when you do those things that you find a line of logic there. you can see things much more clearly, you know.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I guess the one thing I've realized that I need to really that I forgiveness is something that
Yeah.
I have to practice. I need to practice, but really that's just one of the most insurmountable mountains at times, to just completely let go of something and accept someone who you feel, you know, hurt you, just to like let go of your emotion towards that, and to try and selflessly see like why that person was that way in the situation, you know, and to remove yourself out of it, you know. It's really difficult to do, but
I did that when I was going through this whole process, and it was only about 5 years ago, and I'm just turned 60 recently. So this is not something that like, you know, I nailed down when I was in my 30s, but I forgave my parents. And when I did, I literally, I wrote them a letter. I was smoking a cigar. I took the letter, I crumpled it up, I put it in the ashtray, and I struck a match. And when I did that, it was like a 1 million pound weight lifted off my shoulders. And the only thing I could think of was, why didn't you do this 20 years ago? I wasn't capable of doing it 20 years ago.
right.
But the freedom that gave me, I if you could have told me that was the result, I never would have believed you, because it was that powerful. And I was just so grateful that, excuse me, I was there at that point in time in my life that I was able to do that.
Right.
And then years later, when I met them again after about close to 40 years of not seeing them, and I saw how simple and, you know, like really like cavemen these people are, that took me to the next level. Like, oh my God, I'm free. This has nothing to do with me, man. You know, and it was really like the most cathartic thing that ever happened to me in my life, those series of events.
Yeah.
So it was,
I mean, I've come to also, there's a sort of idea within occult esoteric philosophy that's there was this book that I had a long time ago. I don't have it anymore. It was called Occult Anatomy. It was part of the University of Philosophical Research here. It was like a book that I think Manly P. Hall had put together. But there was a notion in it about that I do believe, actually, but that you choose your parents. You choose your parents at the moment of conception, and your soul enters your body and your soul's purpose. You are given your purpose through through your birth with the parents that you have. And like you know, I often wonder, like I remember wondering this quite frequently, when like, why do I have to deal with this? Like, why is this my reality? Why is this, like, these are all things that these are things that you've been given, like a task for you. These are things that you have to like understand, that you have to get beyond, that you have to like get to the next level. You have to continually like ascend. But I thought that was really interesting, and I think that comes from like probably an early Vedic kind of philosophy as well. This idea that, you know, that at the moment of conception, that you actually enter your soul enters this body.
Yeah, I wouldn't have made that choice. That personally, I don't know if I agree with that. I would have chosen almost anybody else.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think you're on your path, though. You know, you are on your path.
Yeah, no, I'm on my path, and it's interesting that you said that, though, because there may be some. I always thought my whole life that I never believed in like a higher power until very recently, the last 4 or 5 years, because I thought I was just abandoned there because I had it was pretty fucking difficult. And I came to realize that when I met my parents as an adult years later, if I hadn't have had all this like abuse, I might have stayed there and become like them. So I came to realize the abuse didn't happen to me. It happened for me in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because I left at a very young age.
Yeah.
And if that hadn't have been around, I might have stuck it out there and I could have turned out like them. Who the hell knows? So maybe that's correct. I don't know about where the soul enters you and that's your choice. I don't know, but I'm happy today. So that's all I can't really, I have no regrets because this minute I'm pretty fucking happy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. There
was that one record for all the fucked up children of the world. Like it's like a Spaceman 3 record. I remember when I found that record like early on, I was like,
Spaceman 3 for all the fucked up children in the world. I've never heard that.
For all the fucked up children of the world. Yeah. It's like, yeah.
That should have been like a couple of 100 million copies sold.
Yeah, for sure. They're just maybe slightly too weird for it, but you know, but that's also another thing. Like, why are we in that reality that kind of a record isn't more well known?
Crazy. Hey, let's shift gears for a few minutes. What's your talk about gear? What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other 2 guitars would round out your top 3?
Oh yeah. Yeah, my main guitar is it's like a Fender Jazzmaster.
Okay.
It's a 62 and it's
like a legit 62 or like a reissue?
No, it's a 62, but it's been modded out completely. Like I have these Gretsch Filtertron pickups in it.
Yeah.
And I picked those ones specifically because I was obsessed with like the guitars on White Light, White Heat and like that Velvet's record. Yeah. And but it's interesting because like those guitars usually have a very sort of flat, clear sound.
Mm-hmm.
And those pickups are really, the ones I have in it are really microphonic. So it has a really weird, like the guitar has a very weird sound. But I've always been like, I think from the early time of like, you know, I was mentioning that Tisco guitar that I had. Mm-hmm. I think I've just like that was like a formative experience for me to have like kind of like these fucked up guitars that are just like, I'm not very precious about like about them, but I have also I have a Magnetone guitar that basically feels like it's made out of
Magnetone guitar? I've never even heard of a magnet. I thought you were going to say amp. I didn't know they made guitars.
No, yeah, they had a series of them. Actually, Bowie played one. I had a Bowie one for a while. And Hagstrom's, I was into Hagstrom's, but the Magnetone is interesting. I have like also again it's modded out, and I have these 69 like 1969 humbuckers from a Firebird in them. So it's like the guitar,
the mini hums.
Yeah, those mini hums. But they're it's like the guitar feels like it's made out of balsa wood. It's so light, and it has these pickups in it that are, you know, like almost like too powerful for the guitar, but it's also a really cool sound. But I've always been into just sort of like haphazardly assembled things, guitars, but I'm also obsessed with those like Nippon Gaki Yamahas. I have like a 12 string and the 6 string now, and I didn't realize that like those guitars are the sound for like the 12 strings, like the sound on like the Big Star records.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And yeah, it's like these are the Orange label ones that are like from early 70s. And then somewhere I found that the 6 string is like Page used that specific guitar, though I've never really seen pictures of him with one.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, I think the main acoustic that I have though is a Martin D28 that I love. It has it's like a pre-war. It's a reissue at some point it was made, but it has like all the pre-war sort of like the composition of it is pre-war.
That's very cool, man.
Like the bridge and the nut and everything, and the bracing on the inside is different.
And I want to ask you a question about those pickups, because I was thinking about I'm friends with. I had a guy on my show. His name is, I don't know if you know Jeff Carlisi. He's the guitarist. Yeah, he's the lead guitarist for 38 Special, and we became buddies. And he has the guitar he used for most of the solos for 38 Special was a Les Paul Deluxe, which is basically Les Paul with those mini hums.
Yeah.
But I'm reluctant to get one because I've never like played it. What are the hums? What do mini humbuckers sound like?
God, they're really. You know what I like about them is that they almost feel like they break up in the same way that like a little like if you're just cranking like a Fender Tweed.
Sure.
You know, it's almost like that Keith Richards kind of vibe.
Are they like
They're
high
hot.
pitched? But are they
They're,
high pitched, or are they like I like a fat, like a British, like what you're talking about? I like a British brown sound, and I
yeah.
was only concerned that those are like more high pitched. I don't know though.
I wouldn't say they were high pitched.
Okay,
No. Yeah, I'm really
you like
into I'm really into it. I mean, it might be also the guitar though. It's also, you know, again, we can talk about all this stuff, but it's ultimately the player, right?
yeah,
It's your fingers, you know,
right,
your
right.
your energy.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go to my local store and check one of those out, and just to pick it up and play it. It's like I don't need another guitar either. So
Yeah.
it was funny. My wife said the other day, she's like, I said, I'm just selling this Strat I have. And I was just mentioning this. She goes, oh, so you don't need to buy another guitar? I'm like, hun, I'm a guitar player. Of course I do.
You always need another guitar. It's like a lifelong fascination. They're so beautiful. They're so
Yeah. And then
beautiful.
you let it go. And then it's just, yeah, they're so beautiful.
I
Hey, do
had
you,
that
what's
for
that?
Razorlike. Razorlike was actually
Yeah.
like
Would you,
I have an SG because that one's like C to C. It's like detuned. Um,
okay.
I had an SG that I think I wrote that on, and then Bob gave me this baritone. I think it's like a weird baritone too. It's like a Schecter baritone, but that's the guitar that's actually on that record. It's like a
Oh, on Razorlike.
yeah, it's a
Your,
super like yeah, it's like a
your
metal.
solos is on a baritone?
Solos are on the baritone. Everything's on that baritone. Yeah,
Wow. I'm going to
yeah.
re-listen to that now with it. That's interesting, man, because the guitar work on there is fucking awesome. I mean,
Oh man,
you did such a good job of just creating this monstrous buildup. And then like it's just the climax of it when it came, it was just, that's a perfect song for me. That's a perfect song. I think it's a beautiful track. And, I was telling you earlier before we started recording, it reminds me a lot of David Gilmour. Not that your playing is like his, but the note selection was pretty damn perfect on there. There's not
yeah.
a bad note in all of your music, really. But that song just like, is that the most popular song that you've released?
I don't think so. Though
Really? Okay.
I'm not good at gauging that, but no, I mean I like people do like that song, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think that's the most popular.
What do you think is the most popular song?
Um Weirdly I think the song called Redeemer that's on that record is the more popular song.
Okay.
And Fader actually has now become one.
Yeah. Fader's a
Um
beautiful track. Do you remember the first album you bought?
I do because I was thinking about this. The first album that I actually bought with my own money was at a garage sale, and it was the Tacoma sampler, like it was like John Fahey, uh, Peter Lang, and Leo Kaki, and I bought it I didn't know who those people were, and I bought it because of the cover because it was so amazing. It has this weird kind of archaic these two symmetrical dragons on the front. And I became completely obsessed with John Fahey
Yeah, he's
after
a
that. Like,
great player.
And weirdly, like, I didn't realize that a lot of the music that I was listening to, like Page was taking from like Roy Harper and a lot
Yeah.
of the like his detunings, and then the Fahey tunings, like all this stuff, all the alternate tunings. That was like an early experiment with me that I kind of dove into, which I don't know that none of my friends were like doing that at the time when we were younger. Like or that I knew of. So I was just a lot of that stuff, because I listened to a lot of Indian classical music when I was growing up, because it was around the house. And so when I started playing like rock guitar, I was essentially just sort of trying to like come up with tunings that would sound like
like Indian.
certain
Yeah,
ragas.
that's what music was in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And yeah, but it was just, it's weird, like almost like how did I go to this garage sale and find that record, because that record, that was like a complete like channel into like trying to put those pieces together. I
Yeah.
always find that interesting.
Oh, so do I. It's very interesting, and I hear all these stories too. So it's net. It's everyone's question. Why did that happen? How did that happen? And I don't know if there's ever an answer. Hey, do you have a worst gig ever story?
Like worst, yeah, I was curious what's worst, like, what does
Whatever
that mean
you
to you? Like,
interpret.
oh, yeah.
Totally up to you, man.
I mean, I have like a nightmare gig that happened when I was really young. It was actually, it was on that first Sebadoh tour that we did, and we had a show in Albuquerque, and those guys from the Butthole Surfers were on tour. They like hung out for a couple of the shows. I barely knew who they were at the time, but Gibby gave me some pills that I took before my show, and I was like, at the time, I was drinking. Like, I don't drink anymore, but my drummer just he told me this whole thing. Like, I turned to him at some point, and I was like, we'd maybe gotten into the first song, and I apparently said to him like, I think I'm going to need to go to the hospital or something. And then I guess I just fell over my stack, and I had a sun. Like, I was using suns at the time,
right?
So I had this like huge kind of like sun stack that I fell over. And then my only memory after that is just waking up in the back of our Country Squire station wagon, because we used to tour in that, in a parking lot in Albuquerque at like 6 a.m. And I was just like alone.
Note to self: don't take pills from Gibby.
Yeah.
Shit. Hey man, tell me your top 3 Desert Island discs. No particular order, and just for this moment, because obviously that changes.
Yeah. Well, I definitely know Leonard Cohen. I would have a Leonard Cohen record on that for sure. But maybe Terry Riley, some Terry Riley records. Vilayat Khan, who was an amazing sitar player, lived weirdly in the shadow of Ravi Shankar, but kind of had, he's pretty interesting. I think he did like a lot of the music on this really amazing Satyajit Ray film called Jalsaghar, which is The Music Room. It's a beautiful film in India's history, if you ever want to see it. But like Vilayat Khan did all this amazing work on it, and then I think when the posters came out, they credited Ravi Shankar with it.
Holy crap!
Yeah, and it's like, so they had this like life. Apparently, they had some kind of like lifelong feud or something going on, but I don't know how true that is. But yeah, maybe that.
Spell his first name for me, please.
Vilayat, Vilayat.
Okay,
Vilayat
I got
Khan.
It right. Kahn or Khan. Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll get it. There's
also these other singers that I've been pretty obsessed with. These Indian singers, Nazakat and Salamat Ali Khan. They're brothers, and they do this Khayal singing. It's cosmic. If you want to fucking hear cosmic, it's like, I don't even know how they do what they do, but it's incredible. Like
Nazakat Ali Khan.
Nazakat and Salamat. That's 2 brothers.
Okay.
They have like, I mean, I'm sure they have recordings. I have like the coolest thing I ever got. So when my parents moved from India to London, they put all this stuff in trunks, all their belongings in trunks that were on boats, and then there was like one that got lost, and that one had all of these early records, like his master's voice records, Indian classical music, Indian vocal music, and those records were lost. And my dad, I guess he had told me that that like a year after they got to England, that they were found finally. But they had been waterlogged, so all the covers were ruined, but the vinyl's all perfect. But
that's weird. Usually that's like the vinyl's like shaped like a,
Yeah. No, it's like, it's incredible. Like there's some 78s there too. But I have this box of those records that has been like, I mean, it's just like constantly, like I go back to those records.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that. Tell me, Imaad, 1 or 2 moments of your life you'll never forget.
I had this really amazing experience in South America. It was with getting to meet Patti Smith. But we were on tour, like I was touring with Yayaz, and we were doing this tour with Patti Smith and Beastie Boys.
Wow, that's pretty good gig.
It was amazing. But so we were in this situation where we were kind of staying at the same hotels, and like I became sort of friendly with her, though I was like, in awe and keeping it at a distance and like a little bit like unable to. But at the time, I was on this whole trip where I'd become obsessed with this idea of eating marijuana and drinking coffee in order to direct my creative impulse, but doing it all day long so that I would get so deep into it. And I would like start having visions. I was bringing about. I don't mean to laugh.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's hilarious, dude.
Fucking hilarious.
It is hilarious, but I was like convinced that this was like my way,
But you ever go back though? You look and you're like, how did that fucking thought get in my mind? Like what? Because we've all done shit. Like how did that stupid fucking idea like even surface? Like,
dude, I know where it came from. It was like literally just reading. It was like I was reading about Dylan and I was reading about Tom Petty, and like apparently that was like something that they both had done. and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this thing, And I realized that like 6 months into it, I had become completely fucking different person and completely unable to like. I mean, I was functioning, but I was like, I'd gotten so far into this world.
Oh my God.
So I was in South America at the time, and obviously like kind of going through a weird kind of withdrawal because I wasn't like traveling with that stuff, and like I wasn't able to like keep my normal
your normal routine going. Yeah.
And I had this weird thing where all of a sudden in this moment of complete just freedom, I was at the airport. Patti Smith was there. We'd been on tour or whatever, and we're sort of familiar. And I went and like sat at her feet basically, and was like, I have this problem. I don't know how to stop like relying on this mechanism, this thing for like my creative impulse. Like, how do you do it? And like, she immediately was like, she told me this story about how on tour, when she would get off a tour when she was married to Fred Sonic Smith, like MC5, fucking MC5.
Right.
She would, I guess, play, I can't remember if it was trumpet or oboe, but it was like some kind of wind instrument. And that she had like a similar thing where she was like, he would record her playing the same piece high and the same piece clear. And then like the one that she always picked that she liked was always the one that she did when she was clear.
Yeah.
And it was this whole weird thing. Like she was, she was like, she started talking about burros and how like you know, bro, it was just like amazing, like experience, but it really like it had a profound effect on me, you know,
Wow.
at the time. I've never like I'm not like uh, I think I've seen her once since then, and like was too terrified to talk to her again. But
I don't know how like people function smoking weed all the time. I got to be honest with you. I mean, when I was a kid, I smoked a lot, but like I'll take a puff of it now and again.
I,
I don't know if it's
yeah,
stronger. I don't like being like, I feel so stupid, like I'm
oh
watching a
yeah,
movie, then I'm like, 20 minutes into the thing, I'm like, I don't know a single fucking person on the screen. What is this guy's it's like a time block removed from my life that I don't like.
yeah.
It's,
Um, I'm not vouching for it at all. Like it's like yeah, it's just something that I did at the time or whatever.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy every day, man. Holy shit, I
It
definitely couldn't
was it
handle
was
that.
deep. It was like a really long time. Like I was like,
And
it
so
was this whole thing. I was committed to it.
after your conversation with her, did you cut it off or?
I just realized that like this is someone that I respect so much, and yeah, it was like for me just realizing that um, my sort of notion of being this person and like, oh yeah, I've got this idea that I'm going to write this like amazing fucking record and like I'm these songs, and then I realized that like no, like once all that wears away, all that goes away, like is the song going to mean anything to you, or is it just going to be
Yeah,
sort of
good
this
point.
like is it going to be this sort of delusional kind of creation? So ultimately like I don't know,
That's
yeah,
good.
like I don't know, like I know so many things that I love in the world have been created under the influence of psychedelics or drugs or whatever. I think that's part of it, but I think ultimately the person behind that, the conscious person, the aware person,
Mhm.
you know, if it like as long as that is like the thing that you are actually hearing, and that person was in control, that you know, uh, the work is still pure.
Yeah, and maybe some people could do that. I certainly am not one of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, man. Most important lessons you've learned from getting older.
Oh, yeah. I think uh, I think being aware and being giving um, would be yeah would be where I'm like moving towards.
See, that's one of the best answers to that question I've ever heard. I like that a lot. I always say awareness is like the scarcest commodity in the world now and it's been incrementally because of these things, you
Yeah.
know, like I'm just amazed. I'm driving my truck through the mall to get to the gym or something, and like people are walking out from the curb into the parking lot on their phone. Nobody's aware of anything. Even when they're in the car, they're on their phone.
Hmm.
And it's like when I get on the highway, I'm like terrified. I just got to be super hyper aware because no one else is. It's
Right.
just kind of creepy.
Yeah. No, it's we're and with the advent of AI, like everything is. I mean, it is pretty terrifying to think about. What our position is, and as human beings.
It is
Uh,
odd. It's how do you drive a car but you're texting? You can't do that. It doesn't work. And I always know when someone's on the phone because the light turns green and it's like nobody's moving. They don't even get off the pedal. It's like I'm like,
yeah.
you got to honk and remind them. Best decision you ever made.
Oh my God. um, uh, Jesus Christ. I want to say something that is not just about like buying a guitar. But I would say,
Getting that
um,
jazz master.
yeah, no, I think honestly, it's gonna be, I think it's going to be fatherhood.
Oh, that's nice.
Um, and I think it's almost there is a selfish reason behind that, um, because you realize that these children are perfect and innocent, and any issue that you have with them is your issue that you need to work on.
Hmm.
And just to have something that, like, to be accountable and to be like forced outside of yourself, whether or not you want to be, you are.
Yeah, right.
Um, so yeah, um, I came to that very much like yeah, it's not it's not something that it's not something that I would have ever seen when I was younger,
Yeah.
like, but yeah, this sort of idea of like learning how to be a father, like being a father. Yeah.
It ain't easy. That's for sure. And it's not very rewarding till much later. It's a tough question. What do you like most about yourself?
Uh, my energy, actually. Like my energy, sort of the regenerative power of it. Energy is, yeah, that's like, that's it.
Most important thing your father taught you or taught you not to do.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say as a reaction to him is trying to like realizing perfectionism is not real,
Yeah.
that, yeah,
Yeah. Good is good enough.
there's a discipline too that I had, you know, that I resented incredibly when I was
Yeah.
growing up, but now can see that there was a benefit to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Discipline is good. They wrote a book. I read a business book years ago. I think it was Tom Collins, Good to Great. And the number one thing, he just profiled all these companies and he said the number one thing that all these successful companies had in common, number one was discipline.
Mm.
So I know in my life, I'm super disciplined and I've been lucky. How about your mom? Most important thing she taught you?
Yeah, I mean, as a reaction to her, I think recognizing negativity and and yeah, and understanding that we do not need to like become that negativity.
Yeah, for sure, man. Hey, do you have any? You're obviously a bright guy, and reading, I'm sure, is on your list, but on this list. But do you have any hobbies or interests outside of music?
Um, yeah, I love cooking.
That's the number one hobby for musicians.
Yeah, it's like, I
Yeah,
mean, there is a parallel kind of thing happening there, I think.
yeah, for sure.
You know,
What do you cook, man? What do you like to cook?
um, like a lot of Indian food. I like all kinds of things.
You must make delicious indie food. Like when you grow up and it's like that's what you grow up eating and it's like native. My God, I
Yeah,
can't imagine what a good cook you are. Wow.
it's like the comfort. It's this deep, deep, deep comfort food.
Comfort food. Yeah, yeah. Favorite place you've traveled? You've been all over.
Yeah. Um, Most recently, Portugal was incredible. I went to Sintra, which is this small town on the coast there in Portugal, just maybe 30 minutes away from Lisbon, um, where there's like the Well of the Initiates, this incredible like well that is like it was dug down into the ground. You go, it's like a spiral well,
Wow.
uh, like
Like you walk down into it.
yeah, total
That's
sacred
pretty
site.
cool.
Yeah, incredible. Or like also those I went last year to the pyramids at Teotihuacan.
Oh, wow.
just outside of Mexico City. That was
Yeah.
also like incredible.
I've actually been to Portugal. I was in Porto, which is
Oh yeah,
it was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. I
totally,
mean,
so beautiful. I know.
the
I played a show
and the
there recently
food
too.
there, the food. I'm not like a foodie, so I'm not usually a guy like, but the food there it was so fresh and just so. I just
Yeah,
remember eating fresh fish every day, man. It was just awesome. Fresh
yeah.
bread. God. Best advice you've ever been given, and who gave it to you?
Wow, these are he got me under the gun here. Let's. I think I'm gonna maybe say Lou Barlow. Like songwriting. Um, we had this whole one of my many tour stories. Like, yeah, we were gonna do this. We were gonna do this show where we played, where I got on stage and we did this cover of a Nick Drake song. And something happened in the show, and like he had a weird kind of meltdown during the show, and so that never happened. And afterwards, I was talking to him, and we just started talking about songs, and he's told me about receiving the lyrics to this song that he had written called "Soul and Fire" in a dream, and I remember kind of just telling him that I I didn't know how to like, you know, that I wasn't comfortable with feeling like that I could reveal that part of myself, that I had to keep some part of myself sacred. And he was like, no, you have to lay it all out. You have to, that's like, that's like the beauty of the song. And so
Yeah.
that was early on. And I mean, that's been also like a lifelong kind of discovery for me of, you know, I, I read a lot of poetry. I've always been very immersed in poetry literature, but like, so there's been a kind of crypticism around like what I'm trying to say, which is part of the language of what I'm trying to say. But ultimately, like, I think I'm getting closer to being able to refine
Your song is
those
pretty
things,
heavy, man. I don't think you need to be
you know?
yeah, your lyrics are pretty, pretty forthright, I think. So you're doing what you want to do.
Thanks.
Most fun thing you've ever done?
Oh, shit. Man, I don't know.
Everybody gets that thought that comes in. I can't say that.
No, I don't even know. I'm just like not a very fun guy. Like I'm pretty one dimensional,
Not a fun guy.
I'm not, I'm pretty one dimensional that way. Yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer for you, Craig.
That's all right. Okay. Last question. Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, Imaad? And was this change intentional or just a natural part of aging?
Um, yeah, I'd say learning patience. I think that that's not necessarily attributed to aging. I think it's attributed to the number of times that being impatient has like served me wrong,
Yeah. Well, dude, having kids will teach you patience. Let me tell you right now.
Yes.
whether
Yes.
you want to learn it or not. Any final words of wisdom? And I'll tell people where to find you after that.
I don't have any more final words. No.
Well, dude, thank you very much. Let me tell people where to find you. Hey, I'd love everybody to check out Imaad's music. Let me spell his name is Imaad Wasif, Imaad and Wasif, Wasif. If you're into really melodic rock, psychedelic music mixed in with folk, if you want to be moved, listen to this guy's music, and check out his catalog. It's on Apple and every place else you could stream music. And also check out some of his other bands. You can go back and listen to the beginning of this, but his other projects are Acid, Grim Tower, the Electric Flower Group, Alaska, New Folk Implosion, and Lowercase. And also he did a lot of work with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and Karen O's record, Crush Songs. And also, you could follow him on Instagram under Imaad Wasif, and on YouTube, his channel is Strange Hexes. Did I forget anything, or is that everything?
No, that's good. I'm going to be,
Cool.
I'm working on a new record. So,
Where will you
looking
be
forward.
announcing? Will you be rolling that out on Instagram? Is that the best place for people to?
Yeah, it'll come out on that too. But yeah, I don't know. It's just it's in the process of being recorded now. So, but
Do you have any shows
yeah.
scheduled for 2024?
Right now I just have one at the beginning of the year with this amazing harpist named Mary Lattimore. And yeah, that's the only thing I have booked. There's a couple of things in the works, but
Where is
yeah.
that? Where is that going to be?
That's going to be in Los Angeles at Zebulon.
Okay. Cool. All righty, man. Thank you so much for everything. Hold on, and we'll wrap up. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for being so forthcoming and sharing all this cool stuff. I really appreciate
Craig, I mean, thank you for reaching out. I mean, seriously, it's just it's always shocking to find like someone that just appears out of nowhere. And I think what I responded to was like, you already knew the music, and
that's why I reached out.
So
because I like, it's so cool for me when I'm like, oh my God, this guy has really moved me. And then I like shoot an email or make a phone call, or this guy and this guy connects me. And like the next thing, we're having this conversation. So it's like, how the fuck did that happen? And it's happened like and it's happened with people like that I've listened to my whole, like Robin Trower.
Wow. Yeah.
I was sitting there talking to Robin Trower, and I'm like, how did this happen? Because I'm in my head, I'm 15 in my room listening to Robin Trower or Ian Pace or Phil Collins from Def Leppard. I'm like, how has this happened? And it's like,
yeah.
So, now I'm like, so now it's so cool. I'm in the car and I'm driving, and your track will come on, and I'll be with my wife. I say, oh man, I had that guy on my show. He was super cool. We had a good it's like, how does this all happen? So, I'm just, thank you for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Hang on one second. We'll wrap up. Everybody, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Please check out Imaad Wasif. Again, it's Imaad Wasif, Wasif. Super cool music. You'll definitely enjoy it. Please follow him or whatever it is on Instagram. I don't even know. It shows you how like out of touch I am. But and Imaad, thanks for spending time with us. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice, go play a guitar, and have fun. Until next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Imaad, thank you so much, brother.
Peace.
Oh, that was cool.